Hey everyone, welcome back to another lesson in this Tosca automation course. Today we are going to see how we can create our first test case in the Tosca Commander. So let's get started. The first step in order to do this, we need to create a project, right? So that will be our project and our own workspace where we will create all our test cases, our modules, or whatever is required for that particular project. Okay, so go here in the dashboard, you will see a create new option, right? So click that and you can select any repository. If none, then it will create a single user workspace. Okay, so we'll go ahead with that. It will take up a default folder location, and now we need to give it a name, right? So we'll give it training, and we'll give it training project. Okay, we'll also use a workspace template. Now, these templates are provided by default by Tosca, right, which contains some default test cases, some default modules which you can use in your projects. So it's always recommended to use this. So once you select this use workspace template, it will be preloaded with this standard.tsu template, right? It is it's present in your Tosca directory, right? So under C directory, you will see there is Tosca underscore projects. And under this, you will have common repositories, workspaces, and the Tosca commander. Okay. So under Tosca commander, you will see there is standard.tsu, right? So that's the format of any standard template. Okay. So you can go ahead and select that if it is not displayed here, right? So that would be our standard template, which contains some modules which will be required in our project. So click on OK to create our new workspace. Now, Tosca will start creating this workspace and it will do all some background tasks, right? After that, it is going to enter into the Tosca commander where you can create your test cases by using modules or test case design or execute your test cases. So all the modules are now present in this Tosca commander window, right? So we have already seen seen how the Tosca commander works, what are the different parts of Tosca commander, right? But now we are going to see how we can actually create automation test cases inside our Tosca commander. Okay, so these are the different sections, right? So we have talked about them briefly. We are in the test cases section where we can create different test cases, right? So these are preloaded with some examples and some folders, but for now we'll ignore them because we are going to create our own, right? So let's go ahead and create a folder here, right? So you can either create it by going here, or you can also type Control N, which is the shortcut, right? So we need to give it a name, right? So for this demo purpose, I'm going to use this particular page, right? It's a demo application by Source Labs. So it has got a login page, and then some products are displayed on the home page, right? So our test case is pretty simple. We are just going to enter the username, password, click on login, and then it will enter into the home page, right? So that's our test case. So I'm going to create a folder for this particular test scenario, right? So I'm going to call it source demo test. Okay. So this is my folder. Inside this, I will have either subfolders or test cases. Now it completely depends on you how you want to design your test case, right? So I will have one folder which I'll call it prerequisites. Now I will tell you why I have created this and what it will contain, right? After this, I will create a test case. Okay, again, you can go through this menu, or you can use the shortcuts which is displayed here. Okay, so this is my test case and I'm going to call it login test. Okay, so this is my first test case. Now that's our test cases section, right? But these are only, you can create either the folders, subfolders, or test cases, right? But the actual object creation happens in the modules section, right? So this is where you can scan your application and get all the technical information in order to drive your test cases. Okay. So here also we need to create another folder which will contain all our technical information, or in other terms, you can also call them your page objects, right? So these are the web elements which are present in your page, and Tosca will scan that page or application and get all the technical information based on which it can interact with those web elements, right? So that's how you do automation, any particular tool, right? You get the properties of those elements and then you perform the actions on those particular elements. Tosca is making the job easier because it has got this scan, which can scan the application and get all the elements and the properties for you, okay, and store them in a module. So let's create a module for our application and we'll call it source demo, right? So that's our module. Now inside this module, we need to scan our application, right? So either you can right click and click on this scan drop down, which contains different kinds of applications, right? So either it's a web application, API, a mobile, a PDF, remote terminal, or you can also go with WebDriver, Salesforce, file scan, legacy scan, right? So these are different kinds of scanning technologies which are available with Tosca, through which you can scan different applications, right? So since we are working with the web application, we'll select the application, right? Now this will now start the XScan agent, right? Which will basically scan all the applications which are opened in your Windows, okay? So you can see there are different applications, but I want to scan the application which is opened in Google Chrome. So select that, right? And click on scan. Now it will start scanning this particular page, right? So it is asking you to click on controls in your application to add them, right? So I can click on username because I need that. I need password. I need login button, right? So as you can see, these are the three elements which have been selected by me, right? And if I expand this window, you will see there is the advanced section, there is the close window. You can also save it, okay? So let's save our elements, okay? And I will look at the advanced section later on, where you can basically make some changes to your element properties, right? If they are not unique, you can select some other unique property. But for now, let's leave it as it is. So now you will see there is a module which has been added here, right? And you would like to basically change this module name. We'll call it login page because it needs to be more generic, right? So anybody looking at this module can understand what is contained inside this module, right? So it is a login page. So we'll name it as the login page, right? Now, if you expand this module, you will see there is the username field, there is password, there is login, right? And there are different actions or value range, you can say. And then in the properties section, you will see all the different properties are listed down here, through which it is able to identify these elements. But you don't need to worry about them. Tosca is taking care of that, right? So until all your objects are unique on the page, you don't need to worry about changing anything. But if there are elements which Tosca is not able to uniquely identify, then maybe you have to add some more properties or change some property values, right? So we'll do that in later stages. But this is our module. Now, what we need to do, we have got the module, we have got the test case. Now we need to join this, right? We need to somehow use this module inside our test case, because that is what will be driving our test case, right? So if you want to view different sections together, right? So Tosca provides you a way of doing that. Now I want to see my module as well as my test case, right? So drag that modules window and you will see here there are different sides where you can put this, right? So you can put it in center, on top, on bottom, on left or right? So let's put it on the right section, and you will see there will be two windows now, right? So I can see two windows together. One side I will see my modules, one side I will see my test cases or some other section, right? So this way it is easy to actually design your test cases along with the modules which you are going to select, right? So our login test requires a module because that is what it will drive our login test, right? So what we'll do, we'll drag this module and we'll put it in our login test. So that will create different steps for our login test case. So that is how you design your test case. You scan your application, get the module, right? And then use that module or any number of modules inside your test case. Now, depending on the scenario, I can use different modules inside my test case. Okay. So as you can see, it has got some values, right? It requires some values in order to enter a username, a password, or it needs to perform some action. Okay. So that is where you have to enter a value or you have to select an action mode, right? There is also a data type, as you can see. So data type is string. For password, it is password. For login, it is string. Okay. So here, what we are going to do, we are going to pass a value, right? A valid username. So I'm going to do that. Okay. So once the modules section is done with, right, I can close that so that I can view my test cases in a proper way, right? Now this is the value I want to enter in my application, right? And then I want to enter the password. So once you type the password, it will be converted into the password format, right? Which you cannot see. Then in the login, so this is a button. It's not a text box, right? So you need to take care of these things when you are designing your test case. Okay, so if it is a text box, right, action mode is input, right? So that means you're going to enter something into that particular element. But if it is a login button, right, so you need to click on that. So you can go here and you can select this drop down. You will see there is a click option. Okay. So once you do that, even though the action mode is input, the value is the click. Okay. So this is a kind of action which will be performed on this particular button. Okay. So that's our test case. It will basically enter the information and perform all the operations on the different elements present inside this test case. Okay. Now we also have got a prerequisites, and we also require something called now we cannot directly go ahead and enter these, right? Tosca needs to open that application and then it has to be opened in a browser. So where are these things happening, right? So we haven't done that. So go to the parent folder, right? So which is our source demo test, and here right click, and then on the drop down you will find an option called create test configuration parameter. Okay, so click on that. So for our source demo test, there will be a parameter which will be nothing but our browser. Okay, so if you click on this drop down or you just type it browser, right, you will see there is an option for the browser. So this is a test configuration parameter type present in Tosca, and it has got some values which are nothing but your browser values. Okay, so I'm going to use Chrome, so I'll select Chrome. Don't need to change the data type, it is string, right? So there are different test parameter configuration parameters which you can add depending on what test case you are designing, but for my case it is only the browser. Okay, so that's our test configuration parameter. And then in prerequisites, now we have got a browser, but we haven't opened our application, right? So before even going into the test case, I need to go to that login page, right? So that will happen in prerequisites. Okay, so what we are going to do in prerequisites is we are going to pick up a module here. Okay. Now there are different ways of doing it. Again, you can go to the module section and drag it here, right? Or you can press Control T and it will show you different modules which are required or which you can put in your prerequisites folder. Okay, so let's open our module section. And now you can see it is not here because I closed that section, right? But if you want it back, right, you can very well do that. So, okay, so in the home in section, you will see there are all the sections which are present here, right? So just select the module section and the module section would be back, right? So let's put it on the right hand side. And now we are going to use those standard modules which are part of our standard template, right? So these are provided by Tosca to make our job easier, right? Now, let's search what we are looking for, right? So on the T box X engines, you will see there is an option under HTML. There is an option for open URL, right? So this is a module which will open a URL. So let's drag it into our prerequisites folder, okay? And let's close this window and let's name this open application, right? So this is going to open our application. And as you can see, it has got these open URL, right? So there is the URL and we need to enter a URL value here, right? So let's copy this and let's paste it here. Okay, so this is our value, https www.sourcedemo.com. Okay, now you can use active tab or you can also pass browser arguments, but for now it's not required, right? So we have got our prerequisite, which will open the application. We have got our test configuration parameter set, and we have got our test case, right? Now, the only thing remaining is to execute the test case. Again, we'll be using the Scratchbook to execute. But before that, let me tell you some other things which you can do on your test cases, right? So for every test case, right, you will have a work state. Now, if you're working alone, it's fine. You don't need to change it. But if you're working in a team and you are regularly committing your changes, right, which another team member is going to work on, then it's better to have a work state, right? So there are three work states. There is planned, there is in work, and there is completed, right? So when you are working on a particular test case, you can put it in work, right? Once you complete it, you can put it as completed, right? So I have completed, so I will change the work state here. Similarly, for login test, I will put it as completed, right? So this is just best practice when you're working within a team and everyone is using the same repository with all the test cases. You can change the work state so that if somebody else is working on, he can know that you are still working on this particular test, okay? And once it's completed, that means it's completed. Okay, so our test case is ready now with the modules and all the different elements. Now we have to run this, okay? So I've already shown you how you can run your test case, right? We can do it using the Scratchbook. So right click on it and click run in Scratchbook, okay? As you can see, it opened the application, it entered the information and clicked on the login button, okay? Okay, you will see everything has passed here, but I just realized that I did made a mistake. I entered the username and password for something else, right? So it is saying username and password do not match any user in the service because I need to enter this username and this password. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, standard user, and then I will put the password here. Okay, so now it is correct. Let's go ahead and execute this again. Okay, so go to the main folder because you need to execute both prerequisites and the test case, right? So let's go here and run it in Scratchbook. Now you'll see a little browser will be launched and it will go to the application, it will enter the information and click on login page. So that's the complete test case, right? And if you see the Scratchbook, okay, so it will tell you what are the steps: open URL, login page, username, password, and everything passed, right? If anything fails, it will show it here. Now, probably you will say that there is one step missing, which is to close the application, right? So let's do that as well. So let's create a new folder here and we'll call it post condition, right? So this will contain all our post conditions, which we want to do after executing our test case, right? So here, let's again open our section, which is the modules section, okay? And now what we want to do, we want to search for a module which will basically close our window, right? So let's go to T-Box automation tools. Here under basic Windows operations, right? There is the T-Box window operation. So this is the module which I want to use, okay? So let's again put it in this view. And in post conditions, I'm just going to drag and drop this, okay? And I'm going to name it close application, right? Now let's see what is present in these steps, okay? So here we need to provide it a caption, right? And then we need to provide a operation. So caption, this you need to provide it as a window name, right? So if there are different windows open in your browser, you need to close the proper window and you need to provide a name which matches that particular window name, right? So since my website is Swag Labs, right? So I'll give it swag and then I can put a regular expression like star. So it can be any text after swag, right? But this must be present in order to choose this particular window. And then we need to change the action mode to select. So it will basically select the window with this particular value. Okay. Now the other thing which we need to do in this T-Box window is we need to close it, right? So once it's selected. So in the drop down, you will see there are different options like maximize, minimize, normal, right? So all the operations which you can perform on a browser window, and we need to close that. So we will select that. So these are our T-Box window operation inputs. Okay. Now go to your folder and again try to run this. This time around, you will see after the test case runs, it will close the window. Okay, so as you can see, there are now 3 steps. First is open URL, then login page, and then the T-Box window operation, right? So this operation is basically closing the browser window which was opened. Okay, so this is a basic test case where I showed you how you can create a test case, how you can scan your application, create a module with all the technical specifications or your elements, drag those modules into your particular test cases, and then create a proper test case flow, right? So that your scenario would occur just as you would do manually, right? So you will open the application, you will perform some steps, you will close the application, right? And then you can write all your different test scenarios inside this test case, right? And you can have as many subfolders as you like. We also talked about the work state of each test case, since if you'll be working in a team, you should always change this work state, right? So if you're working on it, change it to in work. And if you have completed, just keep it completed, right? So you will see the icon will change as per your work state. Okay. So this is how you create your test case, and you also run it in Sketchbook, right? Next section, we'll see some more test cases, and we'll also look at test case design and other sections of Tosca.